Exactly what happened is this. I walked into a local coin shop with a stack of silver I've held for years, and I finally traded part of it for a single ounce of gold, right in the middle of a refiner backlog, a near $100 silver market, and a fresh wave of state taxes that are pushing buyers across borders. And the wild part? The trade wasn't some fantasy paper ratio you see on a chart. It was real, physical, in-hand metal, with real premiums, real delays, and real consequences for anyone still assuming the market is normal. Before we go deeper, if you watch these videos and you actually value the work, hit subscribe right now and drop OG John AG in the comments so I know you're here for the original, not the copycats. Now let me set the scene, because what I saw in that shop is exactly what's happening across the country, and it explains why silver is behaving like a fever dream, why dealers are acting cautious, and why I chose this moment to convert some weight into portability. When people talk about metals online, they usually argue about spot price like it's the only thing that matters. But inside a shop, the world runs on a different clock. Availability, premiums, buyback spreads, refiner payouts, and the simple question every dealer has to answer before they say yes to your metal. And right now, the dealer's biggest problem isn't demand. Demand is everywhere. The problem is exit liquidity. What happens after the dealer buys your silver and needs to move it downstream? Because refiners, the place dealers offload excess, are jammed. Not a little slow, jammed. And when a refiner is behind, it doesn't just delay payouts. It changes behavior all the way down the chain. Dealers tighten buy prices, some stop buying altogether, and customers get shocked when the offer is way under what they think their metal is worth. Here's what I was told. Refiners were taking a week, sometimes more, to pay dealers for silver they delivered. 7 to 10 days on the cash. In a fast market, that is an eternity. That means a dealer can have thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands tied up, waiting. And while the money is stuck, the price can move violently. So if a dealer buys your silver today, delivers it tomorrow, and doesn't get paid until next week, they're exposed. If silver drops hard, they eat that risk. And if silver spikes, they still can't instantly restock. That's why, even with silver flirting with the high 80s, low 90s, the spread you're seeing is brutal. I heard numbers that made my jaw lock. For certain common silver items, bullion rounds, old coinage, the stuff normal people bring in, refiners were paying something like $15 under spot. 15 under spot. Think about that. If silver is 92, the refiner is acting like it's 77 for buyback purposes on some categories. Now, if you're a viewer, you might hear that and say, so what? I don't sell, I hold. Fine, but understand what that spread tells you. The system is strained. The pipeline is clogged. The market is shouting at you that the real price is not just the screen price. And here's the key point. This isn't happening in some isolated bubble. It connects to everything else. Taxes, migration, new buyers entering, and the gold-silver ratio finally doing what I've been expecting. Because while the financial world loves talking about silver's price, the physical world is talking about silver's availability. And those are not the same. Inside the shop, I looked around. The display that used to be full of 10-ounce bars, 1-ounce bars, tubes of rounds, bare. Not empty, but thin, like a grocery aisle after a panic rush. There were a few rounds left, a handful of government coins, maybe a tube hidden in a safe. But the old grab whatever you want era, that's gone. And the reason it's gone is simple. New people are showing up. Every day. Not the usual crowd. Not the hardcore stackers who already know what they want. New people who walk in and say the same sentence, almost word for word. I don't know anything about silver, but I want to buy some. That line is important because it's the clearest signal you'll ever get that a market is moving from early adopters to late arrivals. And I've seen it before in other cycles. The moment your friend who never cared asks you how to buy, the moment your neighbor brings a neighbor, the moment someone says they're cracking open retirement money to get metal, those are not tiny signals. Those are sirens. Now, I'm not here to tell you what to do with your retirement. I'm not your financial advisor. But I am here to tell you that when that kind of buyer shows up, the supply doesn't magically expand. It tightens. And the tightening does two things at once. It pushes price higher, and it makes the physical premium more stubborn, because sellers know they can't easily replace inventory. So, while silver is bouncing, whipsawing, teasing 100, the physical market is quietly screaming, "We need metal." That's why the moment I asked the dealer, "Are people buying or selling?" the answer wasn't a clean yes or no. It depends on the day. If spot is red, buyers show up. If spot is ripping, sellers flood in. And that creates a loop. Sellers bring in metal on up days. Dealers shove it toward refiners. Refiners choke. Payouts slow. Dealers get defensive. And then on the next dip day, buyers show up and the shelf is still sparse. It's chaos disguised as normal business. Now add a second shock: taxes. A new tax can change behavior faster than any chart pattern, because people don't like paying extra for nothing. And when a state adds a big sales tax on bullion, what happens? People drive. They cross borders. They call shops hours away. They reroute purchases like water finding a lower path. I was told the phone rings constantly with callers from the taxed side of the border asking where they can buy without that penalty. People are driving 3, even 4 hours just to avoid handing over a chunk of their purchase to the state. And here's what that does. It doesn't only hurt buyers, it hurts local shops, good shops, shops with loyal customers. But loyalty has a breaking point when the price is already high and the tax is a full extra bite on top. Buyers do the math and decide, I'd rather have more metal than more tax. So the business migrates. That's the risk. Once buyers establish a new routine, new route, new shop, new relationship, they don't always come back. And that's why I keep saying you can't shrug and say, that's their problem, not mine. It can be you next. Because lawmakers see metals and think easy revenue, and they rarely understand that money moves. Buyers adapt. The revenue often doesn't appear the way they imagined, and by the time someone admits it was a mistake, businesses have already been damaged. So, with that backdrop, refiners delayed, spreads wider, shelves thinner, new buyers surging, taxes pushing cross-border demand, why did I choose this moment to do something I've wanted to do for a long time? I traded some silver for gold. And I didn't do it because I stopped liking silver. I did it because in chaotic markets, optionality matters, portability matters, and ratios matter. Let's talk about the ratio, because this is where people get fooled. On paper, you might look up a gold-silver ratio and say, it's around X, so I should need Y ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. But that's a paper shortcut. In real life, you deal with premiums on both sides. You deal with a shop's bid and ask. You deal with the fact that a gold coin might be scarce while silver rounds are everywhere, or vice versa. So the real question is not, what's the ratio on a chart? The real question is, how many ounces of my silver does the shop actually accept today for 1 ounce of gold right now? That's the trade. And I asked for a very specific type of silver because dealers like consistency. A common, recognizable 1 ounce round that's easy to count, easy to test, easy to move. I also asked for a specific gold coin, not because I'm obsessed with designs, but because I wanted something liquid, widely recognized, and easy to resell anywhere. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't trade my whole silver stack, not even close. I dipped my toe because I still believe ratios can move further. I still believe silver has a phase left where it shocks people again. But I also believe that when you're sitting on a pile of heavy metal and the ratio compresses, you don't ignore the chance to convert some weight into a smaller footprint. So we ran the numbers. Gold was quoted in the mid-4,000s per ounce. Silver rounds were being bought in the mid-80s per ounce. And that math lands you somewhere just above 50 ounces of silver for 1 ounce of gold. That's not a theoretical number. That's a stack of rounds you can hold in both hands. And it becomes one coin you can put in a pocket. That's what portability looks like. So I handed over just over 50 ounces of silver, and in exchange, I received 1 ounce of gold. And the feeling was complicated. Because if you've stacked for years, you get attached to the weight. You get used to seeing piles. You get used to measuring progress in tubes and bricks. But then you hold 1 ounce of gold in your hand, and you realize value can be dense. Wealth doesn't have to be bulky. And that's when the bigger lesson hit. The trade wasn't only about profit, it was about flexibility. Now here's the cliffhanger. This isn't my first ratio trade. In the past, I once traded 1 ounce of gold for a huge pile of silver, over 100 ounces. And when you can do that, and then later reverse it at a tighter ratio, you create metal out of thin air, not by magic, but by timing. You didn't print money, you didn't add cash. You simply shifted from one metal to the other at different points in the ratio's cycle. And that's why serious stackers watch ratios, not just spot. Because spot tells you the present, ratio tells you opportunity. So the question becomes, did this time give me an opportunity similar to that earlier trade? Not identical, but significant. Because if you start with 1 ounce of gold, convert it into a massive amount of silver when the ratio is stretched, and then later convert a portion of that silver back into gold when the ratio compresses, you can end up with your gold again plus extra silver left over. In other words, you can build a free buffer. And that buffer can be your insurance, your emergency stash, your hedge, your long-term hold. That's the game. But it only works if you understand the friction, premiums, spreads, and the fact that dealers don't live on paper charts. Which brings me back to the dealer's warning. Trades like this only happen cleanly when the shop has the gold in stock already. If they have to order it from a distributor with a huge premium, the math gets ugly. Suddenly, the ratio trade becomes inefficient, and you feel like you're handing over extra silver for the privilege of someone else's markup. So if you're thinking about ratio trading, the best setups often happen when the shop has store inventory, bought locally, sitting there ready. Now, there's another twist in this story that you need to understand, because it's not just about my trade. It's about the broader market becoming two-speed. On one side, you have people dumping silver on spike days. On the other side, you have new buyers piling in on dip days. That means volatility is not ending soon. In fact, volatility is the price of admission now. And that's why I keep saying, if you're only looking at the screen, you're missing the real story. The real story is the infrastructure strain. Refiners delayed, dealers defensive, inventory uneven, and customers behaving differently because of taxes and fear. Now let me give you a quick practical takeaway without turning this into a lecture. If you're going to your local shop and you're frustrated because they won't buy as much as you want, or their price seems low, or they say not today, don't take it personally. This is not your dealer trying to scam you. This is the downstream market forcing them to protect their business. They cannot buy infinite metal if they can't move it. And if they buy too aggressively and the price falls before they get paid, they can go under. So yes, it's annoying, but it's real, and it's temporary. The system adjusts. But while it's adjusting, smart people position themselves. Now I want to ask you something, because this is where the comments section becomes useful. If you had to choose today, would you rather hold more ounces or more portability? Would you rather have the heavy stack or the dense coin? Tell me in the comments, because your answer reveals how you see risk in 2026. And here's the second question. If silver taps 100 and then pulls back hard, are you buying that dip or are you taking profit? I want to know where your head is because the crowd behavior matters. Now, quick detour, because I promised I'd keep this channel useful, not just dramatic. If you want daily updates, quick posts, and my personal analysis that I don't always put on YouTube, I've created a WhatsApp channel. The link is in the description. Join it so you don't miss the instant updates, voice notes, and premium posts I keep off the main feed. Also, by the time you're watching this, there's a members-only video already live that bundles the latest updates in one place. If you want the deeper breakdown and you want to show you're really following, join the membership and watch that video. And one more thing. If you're successful, if metals, business, or any move you made helped you level up, share your success story in the comments. People need to hear what's working, especially when the noise is loud. Now back to the trade, because the moment I completed it, the shop owner made a point that should scare you in a productive way. He said, "We're staying stocked on some older silver coinage because it's coming in every day at these prices. But bullion? Bullion is harder." That tells you the type of metal being supplied is changing. Older coinage comes in because it's been sitting in drawers for decades. People see high prices and bring it out. But new bullion, the stuff people buy to stack, is being absorbed by demand. It doesn't sit around. So you get a weird market where junk looks plentiful and fresh bullion looks scarce. And that matters because the premium behavior can diverge. If you're buying, you might think you're seeing abundance, until you ask for the product you actually want and it's gone. Now, remember the refiner spread we talked about? $15 under spot? That's not just a number, it's a message. There is so much volume in certain channels that the refiner is discounting what they pay, not because silver is worthless, but because their capacity is limited and their risk is high. So when a refiner lowers bids, dealers lower bids, and sellers either accept it or hold back. And when sellers hold back, supply tightens in the retail channel, which is how you get price pressure. But you also get anger because sellers feel cheated, even when the dealer is simply reflecting the downstream bid. This is why education matters right now. People think the market is one clean price. It isn't. It's a network of prices, and the weakest link sets the tone. Now let's talk about the emotional side, because a lot of viewers don't admit it. Silver at 90 plus feels unreal. If you stacked when it was 20 or 30, it's hard to process. You start thinking in extremes. You start believing every prediction. You start feeling like 100 is guaranteed, and maybe it is close. But markets don't move in straight lines. They breathe, they lunge, they punish. So when you see intraday price changes that force dealers to adjust tags 2 or 3 times a day, that's not normal. That's a market in discovery mode. And discovery mode is where fortunes get made and mistakes get punished. So I approach this trade with a simple mindset. I'm not trying to call the exact top or bottom. I'm trying to improve my position. I'm trying to convert some of my gains into a form that gives me choices. Because in a scenario where you need to move fast, silver's weakness is its strength. It's real. It's tangible. But it's heavy. Gold is the opposite. It's dense. It's compact. It's the kind of asset that changes your options. And if you think that's irrelevant, remember the cross-border buyers we discussed. People will drive hours to save 10%. If circumstances ever force you to relocate, portability stops being a theory. So yes, I like silver. But I also like not needing a wheelbarrow. Now, here's the part that makes this story go viral if people actually think about it. A year ago, 1 ounce of gold could get you more than 100 ounces of silver in a clean trade scenario. Now, that same ounce of gold costs roughly half that in silver terms. That's a massive ratio swing in a short period. And if you took advantage of it, if you moved gold into silver when the ratio was stretched, and now you're moving some silver back into gold as it compresses, you didn't just win on price, you won on quantity. You multiplied metal, without adding capital. That's the kind of thing people struggle to believe because they're trained to think only in dollars. But metals operate on relative value too, and relative value is where the hidden gains live. So when I looked at my pile of rounds being counted out for the trade, I wasn't sad. I was calculating. I was thinking, if I started with gold, moved into silver at a high ratio, and now I'm moving back at a lower ratio, I'm extracting value from the ratio itself. And that's the strategy. Now, a lot of people ask, should I do the same? I can't answer that for you, but I can give you the framework. First, know your goal. Are you stacking for long-term wealth, for emergency use, for trading, or for all three? Second, know your friction. What premiums are you paying? What is your local dealer's spread? Are they even able to do fair trades right now? Third, watch the ratio, but don't worship it. The ratio can overshoot in both directions. Fourth, don't let hype force your hand. If you're trading, trade because it improves your situation, not because you feel pressured by headlines. And that last point is crucial because hype is everywhere right now. Not just in metals, in everything. You've got multiple metals moving at once. You've got industrial commodities running. You've got people suddenly talking about copper like they discovered it yesterday. The common thread is currency stress. When money is being questioned, people search for tangibles. And that search brings in newcomers, which brings in momentum, which brings in volatility. So the question for you is, do you want to be the newcomer chasing or the prepared person positioning? Now, I also want to sprinkle in something important for the community because I'm watching the space and I'm not blind. Copycats are real. Channels rip ideas, formats, even phrasing. And I'm running a campaign to push back, politely but firmly. So again, if you want to support the original work, subscribe and comment OG John AG. 2 words, that's it. It helps more than you think. All right, back to what happened after the trade. Once I had the gold, the dealer held up the comparison. A thick stack of silver rounds versus a single gold coin. And it's the perfect visual for anyone who still doesn't understand why people hold gold at all. Silver is fantastic for building ounces. Gold is fantastic for condensing value. And the reason to hold both is because their relationship changes. Sometimes silver is cheap relative to gold. Sometimes silver is expensive relative to gold. And those shifts create opportunities. Now, what makes this current period so intense is that the opportunity is happening while the market infrastructure is stressed. That's rare. Usually you get ratio swings in calmer conditions. Right now, the swing is happening while refiners are slow, while taxes are distorting demand, and while new buyers are swarming. That's why I'm watching it closely. Because stressed infrastructure can create sudden surprises. A shop that's buying today might stop buying tomorrow. A product that's available this week might vanish next week. A premium that looks stable might blow out overnight. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss the window. But there's one detail from that day that I held back, because it's the detail that explains why the timing felt urgent. When I asked what the shop had in the back, the answer wasn't confidence. It was a pause, a little hesitation. And in a normal market, that doesn't happen because a dealer knows there's always more on the way. Right now, even the back safe is being rationed. 1 tube here, a few coins there, and a lot of empty space where metal used to live. That pause matters, especially for gold. Silver can rush in on a big up day. People empty drawers, bring in old coinage, and suddenly the counter is stacked. Gold doesn't do that. Gold drips. People part with it later, and usually only when the price becomes too tempting, or they have to. So when I saw a single ounce of gold sitting in the case, I treated it like a window. And windows close fast when supply is thin and demand is loud. Now if you're thinking, John, why not keep every ounce of silver if it's this strong? Here's my answer. Strength creates leverage, and leverage creates options. If silver runs, you can use some of that run to convert into other forms of security without adding fresh cash. That doesn't mean you abandon silver. It means you rebalance so you're not fragile. And fragility is the real enemy in 2026. Because the refiner issue is not just an annoying delay, it's a risk engine. A refiner gets hit with volume and with price movement at the same time. If they're overloaded, they protect themselves by widening their own spread. That's how you end up hearing $15 back of spot for common silver categories. It's not a moral statement, it's a capacity statement. And that spread feeds downstream. Refiners pay less, dealers pay less, sellers get angry, and some shops simply stop buying because they can't afford to have cash tied up while the price whips around. If they buy too aggressively and silver drops before they get paid, they can go under. So yes, if your dealer says, "Not today," don't assume it's personal. Assume it's survival. Now here's the cliffhanger. Stressed systems don't calm down in a straight line. They usually swing. Sometimes stress produces a squeeze. Demand overwhelms supply and price jumps. Other times it produces a shakeout. Price drops fast to scare people and then rebounds when metal stops coming in. And the market can do both close together. That's why you need scenarios, not certainty. Scenario 1. Silver pushes through 100, premiums stay stubborn, and retail supply stays thin. Scenario 2. Silver tags 100, triggers a wave of selling, refiners choke harder, spreads widen again, and price drops hard enough to make people doubt the whole move. Scenario 3. Silver chops sideways, exhausting everyone, while gold quietly keeps climbing and the ratio compresses without fireworks. All three are plausible. So the goal isn't predicting perfectly. The goal is improving your position. That's what this trade was for me. And during the trade, there was a moment that surprised me, watching the rounds get counted out. Each one clinks. Each one is a unit of weight leaving your pile, and your brain starts shouting, "What if?" questions you didn't ask for. What if silver goes higher? What if gold stalls? What if I regret it? That mental noise is normal. The way I cut through it was simple. I remembered why I stack. I stack to reduce dependence. I stack to store value outside systems that can freeze, delay, or rewrite rules. And if that's the mission, holding only one form of metal is less flexible than holding both. Silver gives you granularity. Gold gives you portability. Together, they give you options. Now zoom out for a second, because the shop that day was a microcosm of the bigger picture. New buyers walking in saying, "I don't know anything, but I want to buy." Older holders selling into spikes. Dealers managing risk and inventory. Refiners delaying payouts. And policymakers adding friction through taxes that push buyers across borders. That's the environment we're in. And that environment is exactly why screen price can be misleading. If you want one practical tip, it's this. Watch the spread and the availability as closely as you watch spot. The spread is the stress gauge. Because here's another twist. If spreads get even wider, sellers often refuse to sell. They hold. Shops get less inflow. Supply tightens. And tight supply can push price up again. A worse spread can, ironically, set up a stronger next move. So yes, I'm watching it like a hawk. All right, bringing it home. I used a moment of silver strength in a strained market to take 1 ounce of gold off the shelf while it was available, while keeping most of my silver exposure intact. That's the whole move. If you want me to keep breaking this down with zero fluff, subscribe and comment OG John AG. Then join the WhatsApp channel in the description for daily posts, instant updates, and voice notes I don't put on YouTube. And don't forget, a members-only video is already live with the full update bundle and deeper analysis. Join membership if you want that in one place. Now, tell me, do you think the refiner bottleneck clears soon, or does it get worse before it gets better? And if you've had a win, metals, business, life, share one sentence about what worked for you in the comments so other people can learn. And quick side note, if you want pure silver success stories, how regular people built stacks, timed trades, or escaped bad debt, there's another channel linked in the description. Subscribe there too. Those stories keep you disciplined when the market tries to hypnotize you with price swings. It's a fast binge that can save you costly mistakes.